to our third instalment of OutOfMyStable.com. Today we're going to have a little look at tree shapes and also topline profiles on our horse. You'll notice on the website that we actually have a whole bunch of different photos that actually show you different topline shapes. And when we're talking about topline, we're talking about how the horse's back shape is. His wither all the way through to his croup. Basically, horses come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. You can have croup high horses where their bottom's higher than their wither. We can have backs that slope downhill. We can have backs that slope uphill. We can have curvy shaped backs, all different types of shapes. And saddle trees come in different shapes as well. Not only do they come in different shapes, they can be curvy or flat, but they also come in different widths as well. So they come in different widths between the actual rails here. They come in different angles through the rails. Some are actually more sharply angled and some are flatter. And the back of the tree can actually be like that as well. It can be slightly more angled or slightly flat. So we're going to have a look at that today and see how that's actually going to affect your saddle fit. We have a variety of different trees here. These are obviously a laminated timber tree. They come from the UK. And you can actually see between these two trees, this one here is much broader between the rails than this one here. It's also flatter. This tree is actually designed for broad-backed horses who also have quite wide withers. If you tried to put this narrow little tree on something that has a very broad wither or broad vertebra and broad and flat through their back, they're actually going to get restricted at the base of the wither here. And it's an area that a lot of people can't actually see on a saddle because it's set underneath and far down at the base of the wither. This tree has also got more shape to it. It's a little bit hard to see, but this tree is actually slightly curvier than this tree, which is very flat. So this tree is actually going to suit a flat-backed horse, whereas this tree here is going to suit a horse that's got more of a curvy top line. And we'll pop that on Artie here and actually see what actual gullet angle fits in. When we pop this tree on his back, we can actually see it rocking from back to front. Ideally, we want the tree to actually match the same shape of his top line, and you can see this is curving up off his back. Not only that, Artie, because he's a warm blood, actually is very broad through here at the base of his wither. And if we get a bit of a close-up view of this, you can actually see that the angle through here is too narrow for him. It's too much of a pitch. And it's actually digging into him on the outside edges here. Because he's quite flat, it's actually digging in here. Now, you wouldn't actually be able to physically see this very well when you're looking at a saddle, but we know the shape of this tree. It's very, very important for us not only to feel these angles in the saddle when you've got a saddle on, but also to pop your hand down through the channel and feel for pressure down here, because in any saddles that have got a narrow twist, often the tree can be narrow in that area as well, and they don't suit the big broad horses. We try the really broad and flat tree on him. Now this actually gives him even more room. This is actually a little bit more suitable for him. He's lost his attention there for a second. This one's giving him more room for his wither, and because he's a warm blood, he does have a lot of bone, so he's very, very wide through his vertebra here. So this is actually sitting at a better angle on either side here, and it's resting on his muscles really nice. A fairly old saddle here. It actually has a fairly curvy tree, and we know Artie's a flat top line. And once he actually stands up on all 4 feet, we'll show you what happens. So you can probably actually see, keep him straight, the back end of the saddle is actually curving up and away from the horse. Now this saddle is a little bit narrow for him. If it was actually the right width, we would see the saddle rocking backwards and forwards on him. The other thing that's also a problem is because Artie is a little bit more uphill, the balance point, that's the most horizontal and flat part of the seat, it's actually way back in the last third of the saddle. So for a rider, they're going to be putting all their weight back into here. We really need it to be in the centre, as close to the base of the wither as absolutely possible for him, in order for the rider to feel balance and for the horse to be carrying our weight evenly across his back. The correct width, this has got a wide gullet in it. But again, we have a bit of a problem with the balance point. The balance point again is too far back, and this is a jumping saddle, so we would probably actually feel like we get left behind completely. It would put the rider's lower leg too far forward, and they'd actually have problems getting up and over the jump with the horse. He says don't jump in that. The other thing about this saddle, we were talking about the width of the trees. Now if I stood behind Artie and actually had a look, I find that this tree is quite narrow for the width of his back. And when I feel in down through the channel, down to the base of his wither, I can actually feel pressure on either side of his wither, at the bottom of his wither, because this tree is a little bit too narrow for him. So this is an important place for you to check. You should be able to feel even pressure everywhere along the panel. So down through this edge, running our hands underneath the panel, and at this point, this is where I feel the most pressure because the balance point is too far back. And also, of course, when I put my hand down through the channel, I'm actually feeling like this, fingers on one side, thumb on the other, put pressure down on the inside edges of the panel. And of course, I want to have a little look underneath the stirrup bar as well. When I put my hand under here, I don't want to feel excess pressure under the stirrup bar either. We can actually see that the balance point is now in the centre of the saddle. This saddle is very deep behind. It was in fact actually made for him. And because he's more of an uphill shaped horse, we needed the panels at the front to be quite small, the panels at the back to be quite deep, so that I could actually sit in balance in the centre of the saddle, which is also at the base of the horse's wither, which is his natural balance. So guys, that's it for today. We're actually making this particular series into two parts, just because there's so many different top lines we can look at and tree shapes we can look at. You've seen Artie today, he's a bigger muscled, warm blood shape. In the next section, we're actually going to meet Stitch, he's a 14-year-old thoroughbred, and he's got less muscles and a completely different top line shape. Sounds like Artie there. So I hope you enjoyed today. Get out there, have a look at your horse's backs, and I'll see you next time.